Now, before we do this, let's go over the ground rules. Rule number 1. No touching of the hair or face.
Of course.
And that's it!
You play as a unicorn.
I see assholes like you every day.
Every fucking day. Think you gonna get away with it? Not up in here!
Not up in here!
Ma, the meatloaf!
Unfortunately, I think the amateur status of the company has come through, and they bit off more than they could chew.
And I feel totally embarrassed about that whole scenario.
Welcome to Game Theory. Join me, your host Souls, and my co-hosts, Tastes Like Chicken, HeyCarNut, and Lemon, as we discuss the latest gaming topics. Oh no. Oh no! I did it again.
Steve! Do something with this guy, please!
Hey everyone, and welcome to GameTheoryCast number 8. Today is show number 3 in our game giveaway extravaganza. Stay tuned because later on the show we will announce our third code word. I'd like to welcome my all too familiar guests, TLChicken, HeyCarNut, and HockeyWarrior. Welcome to the show, guys.
Howdy. How's it going?
So, we've been playing some Modern Warfare 3, Carnut and Chicken. What do you guys think of the co-op? Let's start with mission mode.
Mission mode's pretty cool. Pretty challenging. Lots of fun though. Some pretty intense moments. We worked through I think all the missions, but we didn't play it on the hardest levels yet. Lots of fun. Rob, what do you think?
Yeah, I concur. It's if you played and liked the co-op mode for Spec Ops and Modern Warfare 2, you will definitely like this one. It is quite challenging and pretty fun.
I noticed also that, is there unlimited waves or does it stop at a certain time?
That's a good question. Since we completed all of the Spec Ops missions and didn't stand around waiting to see, I don't know. I know there have been iterations of games where if you didn't push forward toward the goal, enemy would just keep coming. But I don't think we've played the game in a way where we could view if that happened.
Interesting. What do you think, Chicken? Is there an end to it?
We never got that far, but some of the missions were time-based, so you couldn't exactly stand around, otherwise you failed the level. But the ones that weren't, we didn't really sit at the start and not do anything. We pushed forwards just to get the levels done like a normal player is supposed to, I guess.
What mission was your favorite?
They're all pretty good. The one I really liked was when one of us had to run a series of almost like camera chain guns, and the other person had to actually run through the level from start to finish. So one guy is kind of remote shooting people via a camera and mounted gun, and there's a series of them that you just advance throughout the level, and the other person has to just basically run on the ground and do that part of the level to get from the start to the end. That was quite challenging. That probably took us a good 15 tries to get through.
So what are you said there's Spec Ops mode, Rob, and mission mode, and is Spec Ops survival or is that something separate?
No, Spec Ops, you can play co-op either playing pieces of what are effectively the single-player game. So you are doing parts of the map that are the same or almost the same as the single player, except with a partner in with you instead of just the AI. Spec Ops is little snippets, many of them related to but not actual parts of the single player map, where the goal set is different. It might be you have to get somewhere and do something within a certain amount of time, or you have to get so many kills within a certain amount of time. So it's a little bit more compact type of gameplay than the mission mode.
Do you like them both, or do you prefer one or the other?
I like them both. To be honest, the mission mode was sort of the same as playing single player, except one of the other avatars seemed to have intelligence. Because the AI
Debatable.
in the game itself is not the sharpest. With the Spec Ops, it's you and your partner against the world, and I find it pretty damn fun. Plus the end result where you get a time or a score or some combination of those that sets a goal for, hey, we can do better than this, or more importantly, we can do better than our buddies at this. I always have fun at those kind of scenarios.
Chicken, you had something to interject with?
Oh, he just said something about the your co-op partner having more intelligence than the AI. I think he probably found that sort of not true at sometimes. But yeah, no, he's right in what he says with the challenge to get certain level of stars on the missions or do it in a certain amount of time. That adds a whole nother level to the challenge, really, because then it's not just you guys running through missions and getting done, it's beating your friends as well.
That sounds fun. Sounds like a lot of fun. Speaking of fun, what did you think of the single player, Rob? Took you, 5 hours?
Yeah, it was around 5 hours. I had seen the percentage completion, and calculating backwards from that, it was, this is like 11 hours, 12 hours of play. Forgetting that what Modern Warfare considers completion is not just getting through the game, it's finding pieces of intelligence, etc., etc. So in actuality, it was about 5 hours of gameplay. It was a satisfying 5 hours. I think it's a pretty well-crafted single-player game. Definitely, in my book, much better than the Battlefield 3 single-player. I wish it was a bit longer, would be my only complaint.
Chicken, did you have a chance to play the single player?
Yeah, I played through it start to finish. I'm not the greatest at completing games on single player, but I played through this one. It took me just over 5 hours, I think. Played it on hardened mode, so I did get stuck a couple spots just due to the auto saving and respawning after dying off of an auto save. It throws you in some pretty weird spots sometimes, so I think that accounted for a bit of time. If you speed ran through it, you could probably do it in like 4.5 maybe.
Oh no, I think you could speed run that game in an hour or something.
With including the cutscenes?
No. But actually I'll tell you what, one thing I liked about this iteration compared to, say, Black Ops was it didn't feel nearly as linear. And make no mistake, it is linear, but it didn't feel nearly as linear or nearly as constrained as some of the earlier iterations. Nor did the cutscenes seem to be where they got to the point where it felt like the whole damn game was basically a sometimes playable cutscene. Yes, there are cutscenes, but I only found maybe twice in the whole single player campaign that I was a bit irritated that I couldn't get out of a scene. So, yeah, barring those, I think there's not a whole ton of single player gameplay. Is it worth, if someone's going to buy the game just for single player, is it worth it? If they were a fan of Modern Warfare 2, I think I could honestly say that the single player combined with the co-op stuff is worth the price of admission, even if you aren't interested in the online play or the true multiplayer component. If you weren't a fan of Modern Warfare 2, or if you're of the camp that all things Activision are bad, just skip the game. Spend your money elsewhere. But overall, I'm very satisfied with my purchase.
I have to say, the co-op, like you guys said, it's very enjoyable. I only played, I think it was Spec Ops with Chicken and a bit with HeyCarNut. It's difficult, and it certainly gets more challenging as time goes on. I would say, though, that the co-op, I never played the single player, but to me, co-op is more than enough to justify the expense of $60, because over time I'm probably going to spend about 50 hours in it. So that's easily what, I'm not good at math, but it's probably about $1 an hour or something like that. It's pretty cheap. It's well worth the money. Do you guys think you're going to be playing it for a while? with the DLC that comes out in the future?
Oh, undoubtedly. And I have no doubt that at some point one of my wise Kraken friends will say, "Hey, I did this co-op mission or this special op mission in this time. I'll bet you can't beat it." And then the time wars start. And Jesus, in Modern Warfare 2, there were a couple of Spec Ops missions that I probably burned 20 hours just on 2 missions trying to beat times and ended up with like the fastest time in the world for some time.
Reminds me of when we were playing Borderlands, and I remember you trying to, who was that guy, Cromerax? You were trying to beat him in quicker and quicker time to get more loot. It was pretty fun. But yeah, Chicken, are you looking forward to the DLC?
Well, we don't really know what we're getting in the DLC. Obviously, some multiplayer stuff, maybe some co-op stuff. I'll have to just wait and see, because I was kind of on the fence about it, even buying the game. So, we'll see. I'm not going to rule it out, but I'm definitely not going to buy it sight unseen. I need to know what I'm buying. So, but if it's got some more co-op stuff, yeah, I'd be interested picking that up. Looking forward to getting into the survival, see how long we can go, because it's kind of like the zombies from the other games, only without zombies, and these guys shoot back. So I think that'll be fun. I know we did some, but we just kind of hopped in and gave it a quick try. So I'd like to play the other levels and really see what it's like.
So, would you guys say that it's pretty darn immersive, the co-op in Modern Warfare 3 and even the single player, Chicken?
Define immersive.
Fun, enjoyable, sinking time, and you don't know what time it is when 3 hours pass when you think it's only been 10 minutes?
Yeah, in terms of getting into a game and playing it, it's fun. It's not immersive in the way that a game like Arma 2 is, where it's ultra realistic and you feel like you're in the game. This is obviously a game, it's fairly arcadey. It looks okay, it sounds okay, it plays okay. It's just a lot of fun to play the game, really. The fun is in the game, and that's what they made it for. So I think they did a good job on that side of things. And
Rob, what do you think? Is it immersive?
I would echo Chicken's comments. It sort of depends on your definition of immersive, and I'm not. It's not good to ask a person like me, can it burn up your time, as implying it's immersive, because I can spend 5 hours with a worthy tic-tac-toe component or opponent burning up time. So, true. However, it is arcadey, and there's a ton of fighting. You're never bored in the game, that's for sure. And for what it was built for and the audience that it was built for, I think I know, look at their sales, they've quite successfully executed. I found the game to be very fun. As I said earlier, worth my purchase price, and I can highly recommend it to anyone who enjoyed Modern Warfare 2 and anyone who likes active battle arcade slanted shooters in the first place would probably, even if they didn't play Modern Warfare 2, would probably enjoy it.
All right, let's switch gears here for a bit. Saints Row 3, GTA style, shall we say. Speaking of that, there was a little bit of a controversy, the dildo bat Japanese controversy. I kind of find that funny because, Chicken, you want to talk about that?
I don't really know everything about what happened, but I heard that the dildo bat, or sorry, the penetrator as they call it, received some sort of a censorship, whether the Japanese people didn't even get it or whether it was modified. It is kind of ironic just due to what you see on Japanese television and stuff, but other things like the penetrator are limited or censored. I kind of find that a little bit funny.
It was very humorous to hear that because it, like you said, they do so many kooky game shows. Why is the most vile? I mean, their game shows are pretty vile, but yet the less vile stuff is censored. What do you think, Carnut?
I find it a little bit bizarre. Perhaps the story that leaked out, it's got nothing to do with censorship, and they just made it much smaller and less veiny to match the local anatomy. I don't know.
Oh, burn.
Oh.
Anyways, campaign, fellas. What did you think of the campaign, Chicken, of Saints Row?
The campaign's quite enjoyable. Uh, it lots of humor. It's almost approaching the levels of Borderlands. Definitely lots of funny moments. But the story doesn't really get lost. It's a little bit bizarre at times, like a rickshaw chase out of a S&M club. It's kind of weird, but totally hilarious to play through.
What do you think, Rob? Campaign.
I don't think I've ever played a game that had so many "what the fuck did I just see" moments in it as this game. It's bizarre to be ripping down the street in a car with a tire shot off, throwing sparks, chased by police, turn a corner and fly by just slow enough that you can get a glimpse of it, but you're not sure what you saw in it. You think it was an ice cream truck driven by Teletubbies. So yeah, this game is full of pure hilarity, crazy combat, ridiculously over the top characters, and it is absolutely hilarious fun to play.
I have to say the camp. I didn't play much of it. From what I gathered, though, it was like you said. It's extremely over the top. You don't know what you're gonna expect the next minute. It constantly changes. But I mean, there's not really too much story to it. It's just it reminds me a lot of GTA. It's very very crude but funny as hell. Have you played? Sorry, go on.
Well, I was gonna say it's kind of what GTA could be in one sense. If you ever played the first one or two Grand Theft Autos, there's a lot more humor, or the moments were a lot funnier in it. Whereas now those games have kind of got a little bit too serious. This is kind of going back to what GTA could be if they brought it to modern day first person style. But yeah, the game itself is quite well built. It looks nice, runs well. They've added some good features like the recording, the gameplay record feature in it is pretty cool. So it's not like it's a bad game and they just use humor to hide it. It's a decent game and the humor makes it that much better.
I agree. And regarding your GTA stuff, I played. I think the first GTA I played was Vice City. Is that the one you're referring to, or was there two before that?
No, the top down Grand Theft Autos, the originals.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I never played those. What were they like in comparison to Vice City and others?
Well, it's totally different. It's a top-down bird's eye view, but those games, when you got your hands on them and you played them, you're like, well, this is something completely original, but it's really fun.
Right. So, about the Horde mode, Carnut and I managed to complete, what is it? There's 3 levels, and we completed 2. Seems to be, each level has 30 rounds. I had a ton of fun on that. Like every level, you get a combination of Teletubbies, strippers. It's really crazy. I mean, what did you think, Karna?
I would compare it to it's the Spec Ops mode of the game, and the randomized weapons that you spawn with, the randomized. If you think the characters in the regular game are over the top, the giant or tiny versions of them in that mode become even more over the top. And it's just hilarious fun, and pretty damn challenging, actually.
It is. I know a few times you and I think it was the day before yesterday, we were on that zombie round, and I think there was like 30 zombies, and it was, see, the thing is, for those of our listeners who haven't played Saints Row, you start the game and it takes about 5 seconds for you to be able to move because it's like a countdown timer. So what happens is the enemies start coming at you right at the 5 seconds, and you really have to get the hell out of there. And for like 15 tries, me and Carnot were trying to, he was living a lot, but I kept dying. I would say you really have to focus on keeping alive. There is regenerating health. You always have to pay attention to who's shooting you. because it gets crazy. What have you beaten any of it, Chicken?
Well, I did some of it with you a few nights ago, and yeah, no, right off the start, I kept getting rushed by the enemies. I think it has to do with the latency, because I think you were hosting the game, so by the time I had started, the enemies were already on top of me. But no, the the hot dog and soda bottle characters are funny, and then yeah, they got the little mini me's that run around as well. But the zombies weren't that bad. They just came at you pretty quick. As long as you could just run away and not get trapped in a dead end, you'd be okay. It's the dominatrix winged characters that shoot back at you that I found to be really challenging.
Absolutely. And I like the fact that you can use power-ups, like you have invincibility for 30 seconds. You can use the increase your avatar. I'm not really sure what that does yet. I think it might increase your health or increase damage. I'm not too sure. All I know is that it was crazy. Like some levels are just easy, like the tanks. Me and Carnut were in a tank and you and I were in a tank, and you can do a shitload of damage on that. But once you start getting into your hands and pistols and machetes or even dildos, it gets really tough, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. So what do you guys think? Fun factor of it? Really fun? Worth the $50?
Oh yeah. The only reason I knew anything about that game was looking for other co-op games, because several people that I know became quite interested in co-op play. And the first trailer I saw, I really was not interested in the game. It looked like I don't know, it looked like a typical scene of downtown Oakland. But a later trailer Chicken shared with me had the bizarre characters and stuff. And so it became pretty clear that this game was an amalgamation of Grand Theft Auto and Just Cause 2 and a little bit of Borderlands thrown in with a lot of humor. And at that point I decided, what the hell, it can't be horribly bad. If I get a few hours of decent co-op, it's worth my money. So I went ahead and bought it, and I have been pleasantly surprised. It is a much better game and much more fun than I expected.
Chicken?
Totally. Pretty sure I'm going to be buying into the season's pass for the DLC on that. But yeah, the first video I saw, I was kind of like, that doesn't look so much fun. But then the second video I saw, the one I passed on to Carnut, the part that sold me was the dude wearing, I think it was a hot dog suit, carrying a briefcase. He nutshotted somebody with the briefcase. I was sold. I had to get the game.
And by the way, some of our guests are asking about what game we're talking about, probably because they just tuned in. We are talking about Saints Row 3, which, if you've ever played Grand Theft Auto, San Andreas, Vice City, it's very similar to those games. You basically shoot people with weird objects, hit them with weird objects. There's Teletubbies, you name it, it's there. It's very over the top. Me personally, I had a lot of fun with it. I think it is well worth the $50. The co-op is alone enough reason for me to keep playing it. And I could probably put in 40 hours into it. It's very satisfying. The humor is nonstop. I love it. It's a great game. Okay, so now we're going to go on to Elder Scrolls Skyrim, and we have our guest HockeyWarrior here today to discuss that. What do you think of the game so far, buddy?
Oh man, well it's hard to know where to start, honestly. Basically, I've been looking forward to like a lot of people. I've been looking forward to the game for a really long time. Especially this last year after they started showing off trailers and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't even really know what to say exactly. It's an incredible game, and as far as the games I played this year, I definitely think it's a solid game of the year and contender. I think Bethesda really stepped up their game in this release. The level of visual polish and quality alone is miles ahead of what I've seen in other games of theirs. Although I haven't played as much of the Fallout games as others, but yeah, everything from the skill system to the environments to the freedom of exploration and just the way they develop the world, it's really incredible.
Let's go down a few things here. What do you think of the questing system?
Like, what do you mean?
Like when you talk to a non-player character NPC, do you like the variety that you can, like, it's kind of like questioning them about, you have a set of dialogue. You can choose 5 different choices. Like, do you want to be a dick, or do you want to be nice, or do you want to be neutral? You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
it's not really one of it's not. Yeah, I don't want people, if people aren't familiar with the game, I don't want them to get the impression that it's going to be like a Mass Effect game or any other BioWare game, basically, where you have a lot of freedom of choice in how you ask the questions. I mean, there are times occasionally in certain quests where you will have to make a decision with, maybe which character you side with, or what kind of decision you make. But there's no like moral. There's really no morals meter that measures, kind of how evil or how good you are in the game. That's not really what they've ever done in these kinds of games. Mostly, the best part of the questing system, I guess, is the fact of just how many quests there are and just the sheer volume and variety of what there is to do. I mean, there isn't a whole lot of like choice in terms of how you go about making decisions in the quests themselves, but I mean, it's really hard to even describe. I mean, you've got this incredibly huge continent, and like every little nook and cranny, even when it's not filled with people giving quests, is there to explore. And even if you do go looking for quests, I mean, I haven't even been trying to find quests in the game. I mean, I like to just kind of explore in these kinds of open world games and screw around. And I've got a quest log that is just absurd. I don't even know when I'll ever get all these quests done, but that, I hope that gives you kind of an idea.
So is it anything like World of Warcraft in terms of questing?
Um, I
In
guess
terms of how you quest?
yeah, I guess it is in some basic ways. But it's also different in a number of ways. I mean, I guess in those similarities, the basic idea of coming up to an NPC in a location and talking to them, and then getting a quest from them, you complete it, come back to them, get the reward. I mean, that's pretty typical for a lot of the quests in the game. But that's typical for pretty much any RPG. Um,
What sets it apart from games like Mass Effect, even though it's not medieval, it's an RPG if to a certain extent. What sets it apart from other games in this genre?
Well, yeah, the big difference, and this is what makes the game so popular, I think, at least for me. In the Mass Effect games, and all those games are great, and the last BioWare game I really played the hell out of was Dragon Age Origins. I still haven't beat that game all the way. It's great, awesome game. But the big difference between any of the Bethesda open world games is the fact that they're open world. I mean, you've got these quests, and it's not just talk to these people in this area and then move on to the next section of the game. I mean, the variety of where these quests send you is probably the biggest difference. I mean, you've got a huge amount of freedom as to like where you go, and just a variety. I mean, you'll have quests that send you across the entire continent, and you can't just fast travel there. Most of the time you've got to actually go there on foot, and so as a result, you end up running into all sorts of shit on the way there. Pardon my French, sorry.
No worries.
On the way there, and you end up getting so distracted. Like most of the time, I'll get a quest, and I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'll do this quest. I go out to that area, and I end up running into 3 or 4 amazing areas on the way there, and and then I end up getting totally sidetracked, and I forget what I was doing in the first place. So, I mean, if you're looking for a really tight experience, a really tight campaign, really focused. It's probably not the. I mean, I hate to say anyone that's not the game for you, but if you really are only all about, if you're a player that only likes really focused experiences where you know where to go all the time and know what to do, and you like simple decisions, then Skyrim might be the right game just because of the sheer volume. I mean, I don't even have any desire to really play the main quest line at the moment because there's so many other cool options on the side. So.
I was just gonna say I've only played it a few hours, but from what I've gathered, it has, like you said, a very massive environment. The map is enormous. It resembles what I used to play in WoW, kind of. Not obviously to that extent, because it is just a single player game. There's no raids. There's no really multiplayer, but it really seems, from what I've gathered, that it has easily well over 40 hours of single player. I mean, I've read tweets.
I've already surpassed that in a week of playing, just so you know.
And what level are you?
I just turned level 30 last night. I mean, honestly, this game, even if you just play it occasionally, and I guess I have been playing it pretty religiously, obviously, but it's easy, 200 plus hours, easy. I mean, that's for anyone who's remotely interested in it and plays it over the long term. That's a conservative estimate.
And what are the like? Is there snowy areas? Is there lush vegetation? Give us an idea. Like, is there any desert? What kind of environments can we expect in this game?
Yeah. So, basically, one of the drawbacks I always had with Oblivion, the previous game in the series, so if people have played that, also popular. Biggest problem I had, and that's the thing, is Oblivion is about the same size physically in terms of the map size as this game, but one of the problems with Oblivion is that it was all pretty much either forest or there was a little bit of snowy areas in the north, but it's pretty much you were just looking at trees all the time, and you really didn't get a sense of variety. But yeah, this game is definitely much more diverse visually. You've obviously Skyrim, so it's the northern part of the game lore. So it's mostly snowy, kind of tundra. So you've got a lot of like snowy mountains. You've got with occasional blizzards. You've got kind of like plains, tundra, kind of something that looks like maybe Nebraska in the wintertime.
So there's all sorts of different
different
environments.
Yeah, you've got like forest with like fall colors. You've got marshes. You've got like icebergs floating out in the ocean. You've got a lot of different types of terrain. No deserts because it's all in the northern region, so there's no jungles or deserts, but pretty much every type of terrain you could imagine being somewhat cold on up. Maybe you could ask our Canadian friend here about that.
Oh, don't even go there.
So what do you think of the graphics? And I believe there's actually mods to increase the graphics, but what do you think of the stock graphics?
Stock graphics are really good. It's kind of one of those areas where you have to differentiate between how you judge graphics and how you judge art, because art design. Because a lot of people will look at the graphics and they'll nitpick, like they'll say, oh, this, which is fine. Everyone has their opinions, but you can say, well, these textures are low res here, or this. This LOD or this you can see this pop in here or whatever. But overall, the way they have to make this game multi-platform. So the fact that they managed to get such a huge world that looks so good as it does on consoles and still have it run pretty well on PC, really well on PC actually, is kind of a miracle. The graphics are really nice in my opinion. Again, if you nitpick the little individual things, you might think they're not amazing, like some blurry textures here and there, but the overall effect you get when you're walking through the the vast size of the world and you're just looking around you, the incredible weather effects, the incredible distance rendering, it really is impressive. And yeah, that's the great thing about these games on PC, is that you've got a shitload of mods, and there's already tons of mods, and they haven't even released the mod tools yet for the game.
So I'm assuming that they have some kind of software development kit for it, or like, I don't know, some kind of tool set.
They're going to. They haven't released it yet. They're still working on it.
So how are people able to do these things?
Honestly, I don't even know. A friend of mine was asking me about this. We're both playing the game a lot, and I basically just told him he's actually a guy who does a lot of mapping and stuff, and he doesn't know. And I basically said, I think the internet has just found a way, because
where there is a will, there is a way.
Yeah, a lot of it tweaks, which is stuff people can do in ionize and maybe some other files, but I don't know. I've seen mods that already like offer new texture packs for character faces and like new tree textures and entire graphic overhauls where they redo all the post-processing in the game. The game hasn't even been out for 2 weeks yet, so it's going to be a good future for this game for sure in that regard.
Speaking of future, I noticed that when was it released? November 8th?
November 11th.
So it's November 20th, and I think if anyone has the Steam stats, I pulled them up, I believe it was about 2 days ago, and I saw that there was already still 220,000 people playing it at peak. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's not surprising to me. I mean, I look at my Steam friends. I'm gonna check it right now, just for the hell of it. Hang on.
How many of them are playing Skyrim? That's what I'm wondering.
Well, right now, my Steam friends list, I've got 6 people playing Skyrim. Last night when I was playing it, okay, I have seven of my friends are in game, and 6 of them are playing Skyrim. So that tells you something. And then last night, there was probably about 10 of them all playing Skyrim last night, including myself. So yeah, I mean, this is my friends list alone, which is not that big. I've only got about 30-something friends on my friends list. But yeah, it's definitely, there's a reason it's as popular as it is. It's not just, I'm pretty convinced it's not just the hype. I mean, hype only lasts up to a game's release, but this is, I mean, I'm still playing the game religiously, 2 weeks after, and normally this is past the time when I start to get a little bit tired of the game I just bought, because I usually play the hell out of it. But this game hasn't done that yet for me, so.
What do you, Chicken? I know you had wanted or had some interest in Skyrim. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you did play Oblivion. What do you see in this game, Skyrim, that you liked in Oblivion, or you didn't like in Oblivion, or you liked in Skyrim and you didn't like in Skyrim? Let's hear what you have to say.
Well, I haven't purchased Skyrim. It's a game that I want, but I just won't have time, so might as well just save the money because I won't. A game is going to get neglected, so if it was co-op or multiplayer, I definitely would be playing it, because then many more people could enjoy the experience together. Like Q-Baller told me, it'd probably be one of the best games if it had co-op. Like it would be that much better. But in terms of comparison between Skyrim and Oblivion, I can't really make them because I haven't played Skyrim, but it looks like it's more of the same of Oblivion, just updated a little bit nicer, and a few tweaks here and there. But Oblivion was an amazing game, so it's understandable that everybody's loving Skyrim.
What do you think of? Did you ever play any of the previous Elder Scrolls, Hockey?
Yeah, I played Oblivion quite a bit. Ironically, I didn't actually get into Oblivion all that much. I liked it as a game. There were a few big things, though, that I think prevented me from really getting sucked in to the game, and I think they've addressed a lot of those. There's a lot of improvements over Oblivion in Skyrim. In a lot of ways, Skyrim's closer to, from what I hear, I don't know from first-person experience, just because I didn't play the Fallout games a whole lot, but I guess there's a lot more similarities in some ways with Fallout games than with Oblivion. I think they learned their lesson on a number of things. I can talk about it if you want.
What was wrong with Oblivion? I'd like to hear it.
Well, I mean, it's just all personal opinion, but I loved Oblivion because it had a big open world, and the quality was pretty high. It gave you a lot of choice. You could create your character how you wanted and all that. But the biggest problem I had with it was the fact, and this was over time, I started to realize that the game had something called level scaling, where the entire game scales itself in difficulty to what level you are. Which I guess on the positive side means that you're always facing challenging opponents if you have the difficulty turned up somewhat high. But the negative side is that you never feel like you're actually progressing as a character. Because even it was actually rather ridiculous to a point. Like the bandits that roam around the countryside, like random creeps, I guess you would call them in WoW speak. They would by the end of the game they were running around in like fully clad dragon armor and just totally decked out in like the latest gear, which didn't make any sense. But the whole reason they did that was because they were trying to scale with the character. And that was a major complaint with Oblivion, which kind of prevented me from playing it, because the whole point of playing these kinds of games, at least one big thing for me, is that I feel like I'm progressing. You kind of want to feel like that badass the more you level up, and that goes
kind of like
any...
Borderlands almost.
Yeah, right. And Borderlands did a good job of having leveled areas. So there's certain places that were easy to fight in. There were certain areas that were tough, and Skyrim does a better job than Oblivion than dealing with this problem. There are enemies that don't level up with you, thank God, like bandits, most of them, and then there are certain areas that do scale with you. But it's not nearly as much of a problem. Like I feel like a badass right now in Skyrim, luckily, because the abilities I have actually feel like they're doing something more effective than they were, than I was at the beginning of the game.
Did you play Borderlands, Hockey?
Yeah, I actually have played it. I only bought it about 2 months ago when it went on Steam sale.
It's about when we started playing it, actually.
It was like $4.99, so I couldn't exactly pass it up for that price.
Including the DLC, right?
Yeah, it came with all the
that
DLC.
Was the deal. Yep.
Yeah, it was such a crazy deal. I haven't even remotely taken advantage of all that. I've probably put about 30 hours into it, and yeah, it's fun. It's actually surprising how much I liked it.
The reason I asked you about Borderlands is, would you say Skyrim scales with level? Like,
well,
if you get to level 20 in Skyrim and you're level 20 in Borderlands, it'll pretty well scale to what level you are. Does that apply to Skyrim?
It seems like in some ways. I mean, it really kind of depends on what you're doing. Even in Borderlands, though, if I recall, there were certain areas you could go to when you were level 20 that would be still like level 5 or level 6, and you could still just wipe out enemies in those areas. And you had different difficulty levels of quests and actually told you how hard they were. So the game kind of scaled, but at the same time, it was more like those were just already set out, and then you just decide which missions you want to do. I think Skyrim does do more level scaling than Borderlands did, which is kind of unfortunate for me, but I think they try to level scale up certain things like the main quest line and certain areas and certain quests so that no matter what level you are, they're always challenging. I think that's the reason they do it, but I think they've struck a better balance this time than with Oblivion, gameplay-wise. And a big part of it comes down to the skills, which are much better in Skyrim than Oblivion 2, if you want me to talk about that.
I forgot to include that. Most RPGs that have level up, like Oblivion, Skyrim, World of Warcraft, League of Legends, any kind of... I actually wouldn't consider League of Legends an RPG, but any similar game like that, like Oblivion and Skyrim, seems to have skills. What did you think of how they did the skill system? What's your take on that?
Well, I definitely think the skill system is a move in the right direction, and it's kind of radical too. It's one of those things. If you innovate, it's always a double-edged sword because your whole hardcore fans might hate you for life, but at the same time, sometimes the radical changes you make are good, and they made some radical changes to this game, and the biggest way they did that is basically they eliminated. They pretty much eliminated the Dungeons and Dragons system, kind of, if anyone's remotely familiar with that system, where you just kind of have like tons of stats. So you've got like strength, charisma, stamina, intelligence. You've got like 10 base stats that you increase with level, and that's how all the previous Elder Scrolls games have worked. And then on top of that, you've got like skills. And in previous games, the way the skills worked is at the beginning of the game when you're creating your character, you actually kind of create your own class and specialize. At least this is how Oblivion worked. You basically specialize what your core classes were going to be. So let's just say I wanted to make a barbarian. I would make my key skills like two-handed weapons, maybe heavy or light armor, et cetera, et cetera. So you basically define your core skills, and then whenever you do those core skills and improve them, that's what causes you to level up. You don't actually get experience so much as you just, by leveling up those core skills, you level up your character. And then any other skills you do, you can level up, but they won't move towards your level. But in Skyrim, it's different. In Skyrim, everything you do moves your level bar up. So you actually don't even determine from the get-go at creation what kind of class you want to create. It's completely based on what you do in the game world. So let's just say you create a character and you're not really sure what you want to make, and you decide, hey, I like two-handed weapons, and you start using two-handed weapons a lot, then your two-handed weapons will level up. And then if every time you level up, you're able to basically, you have 3 stats in this game, which is stamina, health, and magicka. And once you determine which one of those you want to improve, then you basically have a choice between selecting a perk from any number, probably about 15 to 20 skills available in the game. And
question about the skills. You said they're related, like, let's say I want to do a particular subset. Like, do they have enchanting crafting, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, the skill system. So as I said, there's like 15 to 20 skills you can select to like specialize in.
It's quite a bit.
Yeah, there's a lot, but a lot of them are less obvious than others. So you've got everything from light armor, heavy armor, sneaking, archery, one-handed weapons, two-handed weapons, all these different fields of magic. So you've got some that are more kind of necessary than others, some that are kind of more like just side things, but they're all lumped into one thing. And yeah, there are 3 crafting systems in the game. There's blacksmithing crafting, so you can create weapons and armor using materials you find. There's enchanting, which similar to World of Warcraft in some ways, where you add magical properties to items, and then alchemy, which I'm not very familiar with yet, where you basically create potions and stuff like that based on materials. So
Just
those
a
are the
quick
crafting
interruption.
systems.
We are putting the word for the contest, the third word, on our site. If you would like to be eligible for that, just go on the site and you should see a word. We will have it up for a few minutes and then we will be taking it off. And just want to continue, Hockey.
Yeah, so you asked about crafting. Those are the 3 crafting systems in the game.
Okay, so there's obviously the skills. Wow.
Yeah, those are lumped in with the skills. And the biggest difference between Oblivion and Skyrim is in Oblivion, every time you leveled up, you just got to add to your set of stats, and then, once you grinded up a particular skill a ton, there were like 3 or 4 different levels of each skill you could attain, and at each level, which took forever to get to each one, you'd gain some kind of ability or some kind of attribute, like light armor doesn't, weighs half as much as it used to, etc. But in Skyrim, every single time you level up, pretty much you're able to a perk tree. There's a whole tree of perks for each skill. So for instance, it's much more gratifying. So basically, I'm a two-handed weapon user, so the first level of the perk tree, it says increases, my first level perk is like increases two-handed weapons damage 20%. But by the time I'm leveled up higher and higher and higher in that skill, I can eventually get stuff like, be able to hit as many enemies in front of your screen as possible with a two-handed weapon, or paralyze a target. So yeah.
So it sounds like as you progress, just like Borderlands, you get access to more stuff. Like you correct me if I'm wrong, but you can't be like level 20 and use a level 30 axe.
Kind of. The weapons themselves don't have level limits on them, funny enough.
Oh, okay.
The items themselves, I don't think any of them have requirements, but yeah, your skills can have a really heavy impact on how effective certain things are. Like, for instance, there's heavy armor in the game, but most of my light armor right now actually defends me more than the heavy armor. Like, I actually have a higher defense with the light armor than the heavy armor, just because I've got perks that increase the effectiveness of light armor, because I wanted to make a light armor character. So basically, just in general, the whole system kind of rewards you for creating whatever you want, and just, you aren't really limited by anything in the game mechanics wise. You can just basically create whatever you want. It's not perfect, but it's definitely a huge improvement over past games, in my opinion.
Question on that note: do you waste a lot of time messing around with your skills and talents? Does it detract away from the gameplay, or is it something that's fairly easy to manage?
It's pretty easy. I mean, this game is pretty accessible, except for apart from the vast amount of options you have. I mean, if you the thing that makes it easy is, in past games it was kind of hard because you had a shitload of stats, and you're like, fuck, I've got 12 stats, all these random things. I don't really know what they all do. I don't know what I should add to. What does the game want me to do? In this, it's like, okay, I think two-handed swords or two-handed weapons are pretty cool. Just to use an example, I'm going to look at the perk tree, and you can literally just look up the perk tree and see all the cool stuff you can do with those weapons eventually, and say, hey, okay, I want to get better at this weapon. Look at all these perks. They tell me exactly what I'll be able to do once I get this skill to a certain level, and I think I'll do that. Or maybe you can browse through all of them. The interface is console-y for sure, because it's a console interface, but it's very easy to understand. It's all very visual. There's not really any number crunching you have to do or anything like that. It's not like prior games in the series. It's streamlined, but at the same time, I find that it actually gives you a lot more choice and more depth when it comes to skills.
Okay. Now, I'd like to start off with the next subject, which we have Carnet for the first round of this. Games of the week. What games have you been playing this week, buddy?
Saints Row, a little bit of Borderlands, some Portal 2, and some Modern Warfare 3.
Favorite of the bunch, if you have one?
You mean for this week or overall? Those are two
This
very
week.
different things. Saints Row the third.
Cool. Chicken, games of this week that you've been playing?
A lot of Saints Row the Third. Really dug into that one. Really enjoying it. Played some Modern Warfare 3. A little Battlefield 3. Got to work through that single player still. But favorite of the bunch, definitely Saints Row the Third. Nothing like bashing somebody with the penetrator.
Yeah. HockeyWarrior, what games have you been playing this week, and your favorite of them?
Well, I don't have nearly as much variety under my belt as you probably could tell. I'm playing a lot of Skyrim, and a little bit of Red Orchestra 2 here and there, mainly only because I have some friends that recently bought the game and wanted to play some of it with me, and they're starting to patch it a little bit. So I played a little bit of that.
Has it improved?
Yeah, that's a different cast topic. But yeah, Skyrim's definitely what I've been playing 90% of the time, and it's definitely my top pick so far.
Let's see, what have I been playing? I've been playing Modern Warfare 3, I've been playing Battlefield 3, Skyrim, Saints Row 3, and a little bit of Payday the Heist. My favorite of the bunch is tied for Battlefield 3 and Saints Row the Third. I still love Battlefield a lot. I think I'll be playing it for a few years. I do have a gaming community, but that's not the only reason I play it. It's very enjoyable. Saints Row the Third, very, very funny, very humorous. It's just a blast. You can hit people with giant purple dildos. I don't know if I should say any more on that because of how graphic we can get, but it's Teletubbies. It's amazing. Does anyone have any shout-outs for any particular events or any community gatherings? Hockey?
Nope.
Chicken?
Nah, I'm good, man.
All right. And Carnet?
No, but I have a question before we bail out for hockey, actually. Given a player who has basically played shooters, gimme guns, go shoot people, but found a surprising amount of delight in Borderlands and also in Saints Row the Third, but was absolutely delighted when their copy of Fallout 3 was stolen because they were so incredibly bored by it. Should they go out and buy Skyrim?
That's a tough question. Because I play a lot of shooters too, so I'm in both those categories. If someone was bored to tears by Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas or whatever, then Skyrim probably isn't the type of game for them. I mean, because ultimately, if you're someone that wants really fast action and wants to get into it right away, which I can totally understand. I have games that deliver that for me too, that I really like. I would say it probably isn't the right choice. It does take a certain amount of time, especially at the beginning, to put into it to get started, and it can take some patience figuring out what works, what doesn't, and where to go. And and if you're bored by Fallout 3 and all of its and those kinds of games, there's all their options. I mean, this is very similar. It's the same developer, so I mean, it's the same kind of game. There's a lot of similarities in terms of how they work. So, if you're bored to tears by those games, probably not your cup of tea. But if you were somewhat interested by the games or got 40, 50 hours out of them, then I would definitely check it out because. Or if you're even remotely interested in the kind of game it looks like, visually, then I would check it out.
Cool. Thank you.
Fellas, I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you for being here, Hockey Warrior. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Chicken, once again for being here.
As always, thanks for having me on.
And thank you, Carnet, for being here.
Cheers.
All right, guys, that is episode number 8 of Game Theory. Be sure to tune in every Sunday. We do it every 2 weeks. We will be switching the show time after this next show to 1 p.m. Pacific time accommodate more listeners, and it will be on a Saturday. And remember to tune in. Our contest ends this next show. Good luck, and so long.
So anyway, we're between banks right now. Just make those checks out to cash. Cave Johnson, we're done here.